Adam Caplan is here from the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can find on any podcasting platform or on their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. What is the latest on Haason Reddick? He says he never asked to be traded, telling Bleacher Report's Jordan Schultz that he never asked for a trade. He wants to remain with the team, but he does want an extension. So, Adam Caplan from InsideTheBirds.com, what does this all mean? Because it seems like, all right, you didn't ask to be traded, but you have permission to find a trade. We know you want more money. What does this all mean? How is this going to be handled?
Yeah, Mike, I've dealt with these things for nearly 25 years. I've covered this business. There is a difference, though. There definitely is. We're going to talk more about this at tomorrow's Inside the Birds, and we talked about it on our Monday show, kind of contracts and so forth, which we'll delve into a little bit more here. But there are two differences in asking to be traded and wanting a new deal and being happy. There's a difference. It's basically where Reddick is, and we did touch on this Monday. We never heard that he really wanted out. He's not happy because he's making significantly less than some of the top edge rushers in the NFL, and finding the right salary for him and guaranteed money is the challenge. But so what does it mean? He wants to be an Eagle. He's from the area. We know that. We know. Look, he's a beloved Eagle. We could debate whether. I would say he's the best defensive player. He's just a really good player. Been a great free agent signing, by the way. Terrific. I would say, and we don't have time to research this. Roseman's been the GM since 2010. This has got to be in his top five of free agent signings. It just, we could debate. We're talking signings, not trades, by the way. He was a free agent signing. So it's been a great signing, great guy. Everybody loves him. Yeah, the sack numbers were down, but he still had a good season. The question now at 30, which he turned to September, and that's if you turn 30 in September, you're 30 in NFL years. There's no debate about it. How do you find a happy medium? That for agency, by the way, he switched, as we noted on Monday. He switched agencies. So when you do that, look, the agent's going to want a big deal, and the player wants a big deal. Finding something that's going to work. I don't get the sense that the Eagles are against doing something here, but we'll have to see what happens here. Now, the Eagles typically don't like these things playing out. They're waiting on this, but there is a recent example of this. I was thinking right before we started. Remember Zach Ertz and Howie Roseman had their issue. They couldn't. If you recall, there was that video of them before he got traded. It might have been a year before it, but it was a pregame. Someone got video of it. They were having a healthy discussion. Zach wound up getting traded at that trade deadline 3 years ago, if you recall, and he didn't get his extension, but he did play out the season before, and he did play it out to the trade deadline. So there's an example of the Eagles not doing something and letting it play out. But if you're Haason Reddick, Mike, and we'll go over the numbers with you, when you look at some of these guys, and then there's no offense, there are a lot of really phenomenal football players. Like I used the example on Monday, is Nick Bosa really $19 million a year worth more than Nick Bosa? No, he's not. Maybe $12 million, $10 million, but I'm sorry, not $19 million a season more.
Yeah, so there are, guys around the league, as you mentioned, the landscape for edge rushers, but how much this is the interesting part for me in all this, Adam, sure, is the age. All right, okay, you're going to be 30 years old, and like the Eagles have been burned recently by paying people for past performance, which is something they never did in the past, but they've, Bradbury, we'll give you a 3-year deal. Now they're looking back and saying, maybe. So this is going to be an interesting stare down for me.
And then when they did the last restructure, which was more money with Alshon Jeffrey, that turned out to be a mistake. That didn't work. The Eagles, historically, under Roseman and Joe Banner before, they usually make good bets. They don't get a lot wrong, but you make a great point, Mike. Bradbury blew up in flames, and as Greg Cosell told us on our Inside the Birds pregame show, you never know when a guy's going to lose it. You can't see that. Now, with Bradbury, as you brought him up, yes, he was a second-team All-Pro in 2022, and the numbers look good, by the way. Balls thrown at and how much he gave up. But as we noted on our show with Moshe and I, we had so many teams, two teams in particular, tell us how many times they wanted to go after Bradbury. They didn't think he ran very well, but they couldn't protect. And this past season, they could protect, and he got annihilated. So you're right, Mike. It's very fair. You just don't know. He is 30. He doesn't have a big injury history. And by the way, Reddick has no injury history to speak of. That's not been the problem. He's just it's 30, but he's not really slowing up, Mike. The sack numbers were down, but a lot of the pressure numbers were good. I'm not so sure that, and I'm not taking a side. We don't do that on Inside the Birds. We'll tell you if we think he's right and ask for money, sure as hell is. But you got to be careful for how much you ask for, and that is the issue, Mike. Is there a happy medium here? Now, we're early here. He's under contract. The Eagles don't have to do anything. And Haason knows that, yes, they give him permission to seek a trade, but even if his agent, Tory Dandy, finds 3 or 4 teams that want him, that team's got to pay him and give up good compensation, and the Eagles would have to agree to that. So there's a lot of moving parts here.
That's the big thing. Like, the way this kind of plays out, like, okay, the report was that he has been given permission to seek a trade. It's not that he potentially asked. His agent might have said, hey, should we talk about his contract? And the Eagles might have said, not right now, but if you want to find someone else to pay him, you're free to do so. I think the Eagles are thinking, Adam, I don't know that there's anybody out there that's going to pay you what you think you're going to get. So when you come back to us, let us know.
Oh, you know what? I want to add something to that. I didn't know you were going to go there. So this brings up something we're going to talk about tomorrow in Inside the Birds, but I'll give you a sneak preview. So one of the things that Roseman does that's just really smart is he does this in most, if not all, contract negotiations, or guys who are free agents, or guys that maybe want out, whatever the case may be. Hey, go find your best deal. In this case, he could do this. I'd be shocked if he didn't. Let us know what you get. Now, they definitely need to do this because Reddick is on a contract. They own his contractual rights. Let us know what's out there. Now, obviously, Haason and his agent have to tell the truth here. They can't exaggerate it. And then the Eagles could say, okay, and I know that a lot of teams do this. They let the agent do the work. They'll decide if they want to match. Again, he's under contract, but they could say, yeah, you know what, we could do that. Let's get this done. Or no, we're not doing that. Then they have to make a decision whether they're going to trade him. See, the one issue that I would say here, and I know Haason's an awesome guy, but it becomes a real big distraction because at some point, let's say this for argument's sake, it goes to August and September, and you know how Haason spoke up. He's spoken up respectively. He did after 22, by the way, when he had an unbelievable, one of the best edge rusher seasons the Eagles have had in years. And then he saw a bunch of deals get done, Mike, and we'll get to some of those deals in a second. It just I feel I get it. I understand why he brought that up. When Bradley Chubb got his deal, Max Crosby got his deal in particular, and Haason's making over $1 million a season less. That's a big deal. I get that.
All right, Adam Caplan, Football at 4, Inside the Birds podcast. What is the contractual landscape for edge rushers around football right now? Because I guess Reddick is somewhat accurate in saying he's underpaid.
Yes. Again, I'm just trying to be fair about this. I know some people say, well, you know what, he's a one-trick pony, he's just an edge rusher. Well, that's what he is. It's like, I get it, he's a smaller guy. Well, you know what, be careful what you ask for. Nolan Smith will be his replacement if they trade him, or if whenever he's done playing for the Eagles, if he stays. Nolan Smith didn't show much. He's a smaller player. He's a little bit taller. The frames are very similar. What did Nolan Smith show anybody, quite frankly? 1.5 sacks. He had a sack, I think, in the playoff game. But, Mike, that's, you know, I know there's some people I've seen on social media like really not happy with Haason. Okay, that's your right. But, okay, if you want Haason to walk after this year, you want him traded, do you really believe Nolan Smith is ready? I mean, let's be careful here.
No question about that. I mean, is Nolan Smith ready to pick up the slack? But what about some of the other contractual issues aside from Reddick on the defensive side of the ball that the Eagles could have to deal with this offseason?
All right, so they're not a ton, but Josh Sweat, see, Moshe and I talked about this a year ago. If he blows it up again, they're going to probably have to redo his deal. Well, he didn't. Cosell said, Greg said on our show, he disappeared in the second half. We had one team in particular say that Sweat did not look right. He was dragging that leg, the guy repaired in high school. The tape didn't look as good. The numbers were obviously really not good. But Sweat's a really good all-around football player. Really terrific story. But here's the thing with Josh Sweat now. You look at, and he's not old at all. He's still a pretty young guy. Believe it or not, he turns just 27 in March, which is hard to believe, but he does. That's it. I mean, he's been a great story. He's a younger guy, but his contract expires after the season. His cap number's really cheap at just over $9 million. So if you're Josh Sweat, what if he comes and wants a new deal? How do you handle the situation? Has he really earned it? Probably not. Probably not, because he faded. But he's a guy that they love. The Eagles love these stories when a lot of teams didn't want him. I know of some teams that had him off the board because that bad injury he had in high school. But he's been a great story of development. But by the way, Sweat is only making $1.125 million this season in cash, and that's it. So when you really look at it, they have a decision to make here, Mike. He's got an option bonus due of just under $15 million, but just in the real cash is just his salary is only $1.125 million. What does he do here? Does he ask for a new deal? This is something we'll be watching.
Yeah, Sweat, obviously, as you mentioned, last year his deal probably didn't have the year that you were hoping for from him, so somebody to keep an eye on. The two corners, Bradbury and Maddox, you almost got to be wondering, do they have to replace those two? But they're both under contract.
Yeah, and Maddox, look, if he comes back, he's getting a salary cut. I mean, we all know that. I'm telling you something you don't know. His salary cap number is $10.1 million. For a guy who's missed all this time, it's not acceptable. His cash is $6.85 million, not guaranteed. The Eagles have all the leverage here. Now, I could certainly – one or two things are going to happen here, just based on reality. He either takes a pay cut or they could just cut him outright if they don't want him back. We don't know that yet, but he's on the final year of his deal. You can't justify it's all about justification with contracts. You can't justify paying him the money. He also has some per-game roster bonuses. The total cash due if he played in every game, which he wouldn't if he came back based on his injury history, would be $7.5 million is the total cash. That's just not acceptable. Now, what you can do is cut him in half. You could say, Avante, hey, here's what we're willing to do. We'll jack up the per-game roster bonuses a lot. We'll allow you to make this money up if you're available for every game. And he could say no, and obviously could cut him.
Yeah.
Joe Banner told us that Inside the Birds, you always have to be willing to cut a player if he says no. You have to just assume he's going to say no and have a different plan. Now, don't forget they have Isaiah Rodgers potentially, who's on reserve, so he's not on the roster. I can't imagine that he won't get cleared after what he's been through, but he will compete for the slot job if he gets cleared, if he gets reinstated. He's applied for reinstatement, which he's going to do. If he gets cleared, if he gets put on the roster and the commissioner reinstates him, he'll compete for the kick return job where he was really good for the Colts and the nickel job. So they'll have someone, but you can't rely on him, obviously. You got to have other guys because Rodgers didn't play last season, so you got to see where he's at. But this one, to me, is very easy. He's got to take a pay cut if they want him back and if he wants to be back.
All right, there you go. And, of course, Kevin Byard, he's another one that we'll keep an eye on. There's a lot of issues on defense that we'll be tracking this offseason, leading you into free agency. Check out the Inside the Birds podcast. The guys will have a new one getting you ready for the offseason with Adam and Jeff, and right here on Football at 4 on the Sports Bash. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Adam Caplan, everybody, here for Football at 4.